welcome. We are here today at Tales of the Cocktail with my friend Alexandre from Maison Ferrand. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Yeah, for sure. So, for people who don't know you that are listening and watching, who are you? I know who you are, but who are you?
I'm a redneck from France.
Yeah.
Just hiding behind a pot still.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the easy way to put it. It's true. You wouldn't believe it,
Yeah.
but I'm from this very rural part of France, and right now I'm the owner master blender at Maison Ferrand.
Mm,
I've been 35 years doing this and learning a lot every day from wonderful people,
yeah.
and that's the mission.
Yeah, for sure. And where did you start? How'd you get into owning a brand? What pushed you to go into Maison Ferrand, and how'd you get into that path?
Well, it's a long story, but I speak to some people sometimes, and you kind of connect the dots after the fact. But
Mhm,
really, in the end, you have no clue. You
mhm,
just have a dream, and then you got this guy you got to deal with, and it's yourself.
mhm,
And in my case, not easy,
mhm,
and because I know. You have to think what's your engine inside. And in my case, I know now. It took
mhm.
me a lot of years. I've done that 35 years.
Yeah.
The reasons I go to work, and I don't know what it means because I actually live at work. When
Yeah.
I open the door from my bedroom, it is the Chateau de Bonbonnet. I'm in the office
Mhm,
and at the distillery. I look at the pot stills from my bedroom. So I grew up that way on the farm, right at production. It was a small farm.
mhm,
And to me, the two things that I love the most is that deep sense of community,
mhm,
living and working. And it's really living. I mean, my kitchen, a lot of some of the guys who listen here
mhm,
probably came to what we call the mothership, Maison
mhm,
Ferrand at Bonbonnet,
mhm.
and we live there. And yeah, we all eat in the kitchen in the morning. I have no other kitchen, that's what it is. And I was lucky to meet a woman that's just the same way, Debbie, and who
Yeah.
thinks, it's normal and good to be that. So, really, that sense of community, working with people you love and, to me, it's so precious,
Yeah.
and I treasure it all the time. And we have Guillaume here, 26 years. He's a brother to me, the team, and really, really that deep sense of community. And you'll see us when you see a Ferrand,
Mhm.
you see they're one of us. I like to say we're a team of misfits on a mission.
Yeah.
That's who we are, And yeah, you look at us, we're kind of real people, and we're okay with that.
Yeah.
It's just on that mission. And the second aspect, I think we touched on it before we're online on air.
Yeah.
I love to create.
Mhm.
My team does too. So we love to do stuff that's not done before. And the best way to do this is to acquire as much knowledge as you can,
Yeah.
like to educate, about distilling and fermentation, about just go and deal with people who love to learn and learn and learn, not to just say, yeah, why do you do this? Well, sometimes speak with somebody, what's your specialty? Well, I make quality.
Mhm.
And you're like, "Man, and how, why, and stuff," and I said, "Just quality."
Mhm.
And, I'm yet to meet somebody who said they specialize in making horrible products and
Mhm.
disgusting
Mhm.
products, and so to me, the quality, if there is one in that point, except the one you decide,
Mhm.
there's something more universal, and the sense of quality is the sense and the ability to make you sit back and like, "Wow,
Yeah.
I've learned something today," or my emotions triggered. It doesn't have to be a geeky stuff.
Mhm.
When I drink it, I feel like something happened to me.
Yeah.
And whether you do it knowingly or not, I'm trying to do this to you,
Mhm.
with these distillates.
Yeah. Perfect. So you've been doing this for 35 years. What was it, just growing up on a farm and just growing things that kind of pushed you to start distilling?
Very much so.
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
from this small community, and like I said, the village I grew up is 70 inhabitants,
Mhm.
and I grew up. I was raised by my grandparents,
Okay.
and to my grandfather was, very. It's a different upbringing that you would think.
Mhm.
There's a very, very, authoritarian. You're the head of the family with my grandmother, who was the head of the family,
Okay.
in fact,
Mm.
and to him, the wealth and the beauty was in the land.
Mhm.
So we had at the time a cattle, and a little vineyard,
Mm.
the village, the South Burgundy, which
Okay.
is the modest part of Burgundy, and that's where I grew up. So I've learned to graft trees, milk cow, goats, and I love goat cheese.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's a lot of charcuterie. I love charcuterie, and I ate so much since I'm very young that my cholesterol level is high.
Yeah.
So I try to compensate, by eating oatmeal in the morning so I can eat more charcuterie in the afternoon.
Okay.
But that's my culture, and why I'm not just doing this like many generations before me is because My grandmother, she was insomniac like me, and she read to me at night, and she gave me dreams.
Okay.
And she did. She was like a dragon, and finishing days with a glass of cognac in a big in the wrong glass, by the way, the big glass with
Mhm,
the big ice cube. And
mhm,
and so to me, the way I was to say, just go and grab it, use your smarts, and otherwise you gotta be, here, maybe one of us marry a second cousin
yeah,
and go on for another
yeah,
generation. And and I went to the US at a young age,
mhm,
to learn English. I was 18 years old. There was an ad. You could have working papers.
okay,
I did a 1 year economics. And I went there.
okay,
And then I'm like, yeah, man, I want my little shop,
mhm,
whatever it is, and the farm. I love to grow something and
yeah,
so on. And to finance my studies, was able to I did it for farm products.
mhm,
And one was our customers was one of the branch of the Ferrand family.
okay,
And there were it was very, very small. And the main branch, the Eli Ferrand branch, was closing shops. And there was a lady that became like a godmother to me, Mademoiselle.
mhm,
And she passed at almost 100 years old, just
mhm,
4 years old.
mhm,
And got more and more involved, was able to buy out at the very I was 23 years old. We didn't know what we were doing,
okay,
and we were 5 people.
mm,
I'm proud to say that the 5 people were with me. 3 are still
mhm,
with us
mhm,
today. We're larger now,
yeah,
and uh, and that's the journey. And in 35 years, we kept at it. Kept at it like so. Originally, so I was trained progressively as a blender, master blender, and so on. And then and then so from a technical standpoint, I was exposed to farming and winemaking very early on.
yeah,
And that's how, and then after that, we never took dividends. We always reinvested,
mhm,
my wife and I. And because again, why do we go to the office, to
yeah,
the distillery? Is that so? That's where I come from.
okay,
And to me, you'll see it's always there. I can tell you a real quick story.
mm, mhm,
I'm 10 years old.
mm,
There's a little pot still ambulant
mhm,
comes,
mm,
the little and my grandfather was distilling Mar de Bourgogne and Fine de Bourgogne. I don't know if you ever had Mar de Bourgogne.
mm,
You distill the pomace, much like grappa.
okay, okay,
So, in farms, you don't waste anything.
mhm,
You should see the amount of waste we produce in farm like this was very minimal
yeah,
because you recycle thing.
yeah,
The leftover food goes to the pigs in the kitchen, the
yeah,
chicken, and so on.
yeah,
So, and my grandfather, 10 years old, tells me, tells my grandmother, I'm going to show the kid distillation.
mhm,
And she's like, how parents can
yeah,
argue, he's too young. And I'm like, I had no say on this one, obviously.
mhm,
And in the farmland like this, if you hurt yourself or something,
mhm,
and you've really, really hurt, even if you're like a kid,
mm,
I don't know if I can tell you that online, but that was the heydays,
mhm,
you would give you Mar de Bourgogne foolproof.
okay,
And I don't know if you see, I have a longer finger here, so I totally crushed the finger. It was never grew back.
okay,
And
yeah,
and and I remember a 9 year old
mhm,
drinking a shot of Mar de Bourgogne, 70% alcohol. And
okay,
so I was flying, and he says to
yeah,
me, "I'm going to show how to make that stuff." And obviously not referencing to this, that was my great
mm,
aunt. And I go, and when you're small, and he first says to me, "When you taste Mar de Bourgogne first, you have to taste it when you make it. You have to taste it with your ears."
okay,
And I was 10 years old, and I took it super literally. Thought he was going to pour that harsh stuff in my ear. And I'm like, you're not saying. And he's like, "Can you hear anything?" And I'm like, "No, your raw material is fresh. You don't hear
yeah,
anything. Taste it with your ears.
mhm,
That's going to be your raw material quality is important." And it's funny because fast forward many, many, many years after that, I'm in with Batson, which is a coppersmith.
mhm,
I'm visiting different distillers
yeah,
in Italy,
mhm,
and I told them that story,
mhm,
and they're like, "Absolutely, our pomace has to be a virgin, not oxidized, not to make best Mar de Bourgogne."
yeah,
Is this super, super? It's wonderful to grow a hair on your chest. It's this very potent spirit.
yeah, for sure. Grappa is definitely any kind of those brandies are pretty hard
Yeah.
sometimes, but I like them.
I love the smell of them. This
Yeah,
reminds me so many things, and
yeah,
and I've produced some at one point. Sometimes we do a little
mm,
bit just for us.
yeah,
I love that smell and that aromatics.
that's awesome. So you've also done a lot of consulting too, right? You go out and
Yeah.
you work with other brands. Can you talk a little bit about some of that? Some of
Well, imagine,
Mhm,
we're a band at originally, and we had some of the best guys,
mhm,
and so we did a little bit of consulting
mhm,
to try to make ends meet.
mhm,
I've worked in Taiwan, Japan, and India. worked with a guy, Fred Desosiers, and there's different people, doing that. And the best way I think to learn is actually to teach,
Mhm.
because you got to put your stuff together
Yeah.
before you go on air, kind of thing.
Yep.
And so for me, that was great. That was kind of fast course, but also holding a business together.
Mhm.
People you don't realize at the beginning, you're like, in hours, I slept on so many people's
Mhm.
couches, all over the world
Mhm.
because I was trying to, there was two ways to go. Either you could make a one size fits all spirit.
Mhm.
I think, young distillers will understand what I'm talking about
Mhm.
today. Either you make like something that's a pleaser for everybody and easy, and that's it, and you sell around you.
Yeah.
Either you stick to your guns, or what you think is what you love.
Mhm.
Then you have to find your peers,
Mhm.
and we definitely chose the latter.
Mhm.
And, so that meant going everywhere, different countries. And, I remember one day I'm in Korea, there was no ways or whatever. And I got this map. The only one I could find was in Korean. And I was getting very late and it was raining. Open the window,
Yeah.
talk to somebody and speak English. And so these meetings, these very down moments,
Mhm.
trying to build a little distribution network so we could sell what we
Mhm.
produced. So that's how it happened.
Yeah.
And progressively, by reinvesting everything,
Mhm.
only driving old cars, but
Mhm.
buying beautiful harvesting machines and equipment
Yeah.
instead. This commitment allowed us to progressively grow.
Yeah. For sure, and I definitely appreciate that too because with Swizzle Media and then the guys here and with Not Too Sweet, a lot of what we're doing now, Swizzle Media is 2 years in, so I totally get it, like, reinvesting, like, I'm reinvesting everything I make into the business so we can
That's
continue
the key,
growing.
man.
So,
And
yeah.
it's easy when you love what you're doing. And
Yeah.
sometimes you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, you're tired. There's
Yeah.
questioning moments.
Yeah.
So if you think it's every day, hey, 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 no, there's you're like, really, is it worth it? I'm exhausted and stuff. But most of the time, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I think it's an attitude. And I'm just reflecting. Maybe I'm starting to sound like an old guy,
No,
man.
no, yeah.
But my grandfather always
Yeah, yeah,
said, just don't worry, man.
yeah,
Like he didn't say it that way, but in essence, is to say you're always somebody's small guy and somebody's big guy.
yeah,
You're always somebody's ugly guy, somebody's beautiful guy, somebody's stupid guy, somebody's smart guy. That's okay.
yeah,
Just be yourself, go on and carry on. And
yeah,
so that's why, some people were, I mean, we're so tiny, most people must have laughed, where we always kind of were a bit rebellious because when we felt we studied and worked so hard in what we did,
mhm,
Guillaume knows that.
mhm,
You always have, some of the establishments, some guys are great, but some guys saying, like these guys, they are, imagine I'm create Citadel in 1996
mhm,
and we decide we're going to do this in a cognac pot still.
mhm,
Now, you know, I'm not even able to say this right now, but still, so it's a badge still, really.
mhm,
But then we had to negotiate with customs and
yeah,
excise to be able to do this.
mm,
Now, grant you 150 years before,
mhm,
it was done.
mhm,
So just go back to when you study, you're like, but why not?
mhm,
I could tell you things about the way you age cognac, things like, and some people were like, and it's usually similar profile, guys who are like, very established
yeah,
and they hate us at the beginning and so on, but not us, but maybe the mission of what we
yeah,
do to say,
mm,
this is crazy, that little renegade thing. I never thought it was a renegade. That's not the idea. It's to pursuing what we feel is right,
yeah,
in terms of products.
yeah,
And you know what? If somebody says one day, no, I've been wrong. That's
mhm,
okay. If
mhm,
somebody, Matt and I, we wrote a book about Navy rum.
mm,
So, and then we created a Navy rum. It
yeah,
was just 5 years
mm,
of study, one book, 300 pages.
yeah,
I think I know a little bit more now
oh, yeah,
after that. And if something we found in the archives and we interpreted,
mhm,
we did it wrong, you tell me.
mhm,
You will help me make a better book and a
yeah,
better product. So that's always the case. And sometimes that can be ruffling some people in the wrong
yeah.
way.
Yeah, this one thing about this industry is people can like staying traditional routes, and then once you start going non-traditionally, then it's not necessarily not appreciated by certain individuals, right?
But
So they gotta
I,
get
I
yeah,
argue with you on something. What
but
is tradition?
right,
And
but
I
I
have a
guess that's true, yeah,
definition to a lot of people.
yeah,
Tradition is what they were doing when they were 20 years old.
right,
But if you think about it, there's much more to that than what you were doing when you're 20 years
right,
old. So once you start saying what is tradition, it's a word that, you're like, okay, actually, I'll give you an example real quick. cognac
Mhm.
since 1983 can only be aged in oak barrels.
Mhm.
So you'll argue with me,
Mhm.
Alexander, this is the traditional cognac.
Mhm.
And I'll argue back
Mhm.
and I'll say, yeah, but do you know that for 300 years before that, you could use chestnut, you could use mulberry,
Mhm.
you could use acacia.
Mhm.
So now you tell me what is tradition.
Right.
Is it what we've been doing
Mhm.
since 1983? And both sides can be argued. You could say, well, we've learned and now we're better.
Yeah.
But if you really look at the train of thought, what took us there was not that.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, why not looking at it again? And as you know, been doing it for
Yeah.
20 or 18 years now,
Yeah.
because, and I think it makes beautiful liquids.
Yeah.
So I'm respectfully saying, shouldn't we look at it again? Well,
Yeah.
I look at it every day with the team.
Yeah.
And that's why we're that team on a mission.
Yeah.
And I think it makes delicious liquids. So why say no?
Yeah. For sure. It's definitely about adaptability and being able to stay above trend and just keep challenging
A learning.
and learning
You
from the
learn,
process. Yeah.
when you learn, I think some of the great artists, my mother's a sculptor,
Mhm.
and so the great artists I've studied a lot. She sure did. She went to the Beaux-Arts school and she did a thesis in art and learn by looking at the previous
Mm.
artists. You know, you're not in a vacuum saying, "Oh,
Yeah.
I draw this. This is what it is."
Yeah.
And I think that's the inspirational. We're lucky. We're an industry where whether you're in bar or whether you're a distiller, we have hundreds of years before us. Guys that were not stupid,
Mhm.
that learned from experience, like a great chef.
Yeah.
You know, so we're lucky to have these guys, this
Yeah.
lady and these men of the past,
Yeah.
and then of the present as well. You know, my team, you know,
Yeah.
I had the old guards and now the newer guards. It was like when they retired, was like putting together a new rock band.
Mm. Yeah.
You know, like some of the musicians retire, or you know, and
Mm.
so how do you put up together? So
Yeah.
let me tell you, we cheerfully, you know, and selected, and then they get accepted. And I could tell you of
Mm.
each of every one of them and how they contribute.
Yeah. That's awesome. So we talked a little bit about research. And before we start, we were talking about how Dave's not here. Dave Wondrich is not here, and how a lot of this new generation coming in isn't as educated. And I feel like a lot of what you guys do, especially at Maison Ferrand, is research and understand the product you're going through compared to some other brands where they just put a product on the market because the market wants it for what they're trying to do. So I guess what I'm kind of getting at here is the mentor mentee mentality of this industry. How do you feel about that, and how does that
Well, I think
contribute to what you
it's
do?
just a great question. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
when you think about this,
yeah,
the bar community is really a community,
mm,
and I actually am in love with it. I tell you from day one.
yeah,
Why? Because in that sense of there's mentor mentee,
yeah,
there's I learn from you, you learn from me. There's no, you know, we have to remember one thing. We're in. You're gonna think I'm corny here. We're in the business of love.
yeah,
We are.
yeah, yeah,
When somebody comes to a bar, and I look at them
mm,
and they ask for like a screwdriver, you know, vodka and orange juice.
yeah,
And that bartender, because you know, says, you know what? Yeah, I'll make you that, but I'll make you something else. And if you don't like it, it's on me.
yeah,
And they drink it. And you know, the bartenders, they like to just blow these guys' mind
mhm,
and they make a beautiful drink.
mhm,
And then after they'll say, oh, it was made with gin, it was made with rum, it was made,
mhm,
and they're like, all right. And they're like, wow, I actually like this. That person
yeah,
who leaves that bar
mm,
has a new way to look at life
yeah,
about I can learn. You
mm,
know, what I think is there is not necessarily true.
mhm,
And as a connection with that person.
mhm,
And that community is wonderful. What we are talking earlier is I feel that COVID kind of broke a bit of a chain.
mm,
And I love this vintage of tales
mm,
because I think that chain is being rebuilt
mhm,
where you have these wonderful young people. We were at, you know, last night, a little bit too late. You hear it in
mhm,
my voice at Tonic,
mhm,
you know, with pickup trucks and, you know, water in the back and
mhm,
hanging there and talking in the community and
yeah,
a lot of young people bursting with ideas, talking with me and so on. So
yeah,
I think that chain is reattached, you
yeah,
see, man. I think it's good news. That's the news.
yes,
I feel, I don't know if you agree,
mhm,
but I feel it this year, not only at this event, but, you know, like different people and people coming to see us.
yeah,
So, because remember being COVID,
mm,
we're like behind, you know, my friends or bartenders to do classes online.
yeah,
I was like a madman. We usually have people at the street all the time. At night, it was so we worked at the vineyards
Yeah.
and we did buildings. You know, we do our own
Mhm,
building, but during the night was Debbie, myself, and the cat Tom.
mhm,
You know, and that was crazy. So
mhm.
that chain is being reconnected.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely this year, I've noticed there's a lot of first timers, a lot of people who are new to the industry, which is really cool. That's see that's
Yeah.
back now. So
And they want to learn.
they do,
They want
yeah.
to know. And I see that. I think it's a great. I think that change is reattached. I
Yeah.
think looking forward. And I don't mean to be off topic, but
Mhm,
I really think, remember that community in a world that goes crazy. I mean, look, we got a war in Europe.
mhm,
I used to go to Barometer every year and so on.
mhm,
I think, call me crazy, it's okay. I think distillers and bartenders, we have a role to play
mhm,
to make society better.
mhm.
So when I say that, there's a politicians that look at me like, okay, we are politicians, we can make that better. And they're right, by the way, they
Mm,
should have their ideals and work.
yeah,
But for us, bars,
mm,
this is a place of communion.
yep,
And I'm sick of all the screen stuff. It's just we're together, we're having a drink
yeah,
together.
yeah,
And I think that's a
mhm,
major role to play in society.
yeah, for sure.
Major role.
Yeah, I know, especially speaking to what you're saying, like, America specifically was founded in taverns. That's where
Yeah.
they were meeting, so
Every
that's the
country
yeah,
was
every
found
country,
in
yeah.
taverns.
Yeah, that's where politics are hashed out, so
I was
it
reading something like a very, very serious PhD document showing that cavemen in certain caves were eating fermented fruits.
mhm.
So they were making cocktails,
Yeah,
probably, and
yeah,
they were
yeah,
eating that. And it was
yeah,
like not maybe a master distiller, but people who knew how to pick up these magic fruits. They knew was on the floor. They would ferment, and they have this
started
flavors,
mhm,
getting a buzz, being together.
yeah,
That's the caveman.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I know we're getting moving right along, so those good topics. So let's go ahead and segue into some trends and some topics. So you've traveled all across the globe. So what have you seen globally right now as a big trend? And then we'll talk about here in the US what you've seen.
That's where I suck, man. Like because I create stuff, from the research on the people I love. For me, the trigger can be a meeting. You talk about Dave
Yeah.
Wondrich, he calls us brothers from the bottom of the ball,
Mhm.
uh, punch ball.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah.
and you know, that's what triggers a creation. Look,
Mm,
I created Citadel in 1996.
mm,
And I remember being at a distillery in London, that very, very, that was, you can imagine, the largest one. And one of the old guy in a very British humor, as a hearse is going by where everybody looked
yeah.
so old. I was like 20 something,
Mhm,
so everybody looked old.
mhm,
And they passed by, and a very British humor,
mhm,
he says, probably another drinker has gone.
mhm.
And very British humor. And I was like, are you saying this to discourage me, or you're being factual?
Yeah,
He said, well, I'm being factual. Go ahead, man. Made gin.
yeah.
And so that was not like, oh, gin is hot.
Mhm,
You're talking at the time 1993.
yeah.
So to me, trends is hard to tell you because trends are trends. They come and go.
Mhm,
And yes, you need to look at, but I love the bars and the distilleries and so on are going to pour so much knowledge, passion, creativity, excitement that trends or not trends, they'll make it happen.
yeah,
And if you stay that course, I mean, sometimes you realize, okay, this is misunderstood. We'll present it later.
yeah.
We create 10 new products every month. We only launch, once a year,
Mhm,
twice a year. So,
mhm,
so, so to me, I think if you ask me, and maybe that's only wishful thinking,
mhm,
I think there's a desire to explore
mhm,
that I see, but it's deeply rooted
mhm.
and where people want to explore and be blown away.
Yeah,
And maybe wishful thinking. So that's why I don't know. There's something's happening is America has led the cocktail revival. And think about the Gary Regan, and God bless him, by the way, and
yeah,
and for sure, but the Del DeGroff, who's I was spent some time in Canada with him. On
yeah,
of course, we talk about the Dave. They're all these guys who have been in the writers that have been there, and it's Cara Newman, who's been writing, in different magazines. She's
mm,
like in very discreet, but writing beautiful piece. That education, wanting to know more,
yeah,
not just drinking a brand, but a brand is a promise; it should be kept, but really not just the same thing,
mhm,
but always blow people's mind.
yeah,
And that's why yesterday and during this show and during all the things, I see this super excited, bartenders doing this, and it's tough job. It's like being a distiller. Like I was on the phone all mornings. It's very early hours with the distilling team in Barbados. So I think there's a deep movement of, and I like to think that as the world might be a little more difficult, with geopolitics,
Yeah.
my dream
Mm,
is that frontiers don't rise and people start, fighting. But
mm,
the bar has a role to play and the distillers have a role to
yeah, for
play.
sure.
So, of course, it's more, on a higher level than what's the latest trend.
Yeah,
Because I don't know, if it's people are going to drink this and that.
yeah,
But I think as makers,
mm,
we can share beautiful things and people decide.
for sure. Which of your products are you seeing sell the most right now? What are people drinking on your side? From the distiller side,
Within
what are you guys seeing?
as
Mm,
so cognac,
mm,
I see people rediscovering cognac
mhm,
more and more, and man, I love that.
yeah,
I love that thing. And again, chicken and egg. Is it because there's beautiful community in cognac?
mhm,
Very cognac is like high school on steroid. We are like all together, and we work together,
mm,
the cognac producers, and that was not always the case, by the way. And we talked about and really being part of that community. Cognac is a village of 20,000 people.
yeah, yeah.
Do you know how many Coopers there are in a little community of 20,000
No.
people? 550.
Oh, okay.
So you're like in this, this valley of like a lot of
Mm,
knowledgeable. And so I see that people rediscovering, you'll see it with also rediscovering Calvados, Armagnac.
yeah,
This is, I think again, that curiosity wanting to blow,
yeah,
that sense of authenticity. Products are true. Remember, that's why researching what they are. And I believe transparency, like create something, just tell me what it is. Let me be the judge,
yeah,
not don't decide for me by
yeah,
creating a screen, clean of smoke.
yeah,
The gins, you'll see it. When I created Citadel, I was dreaming, and then there's a guy called Charles Rolls who purchased what was left of Plymouth
okay.
and did an incredible job with
Yeah,
it. And Charles now is older than me. He's retired, and after he sold it off, and I was crying when he did because
mhm,
we were like the two guys going around the world saying there was going to be a gin revolution. We
mhm,
are trying to convince ourselves as well as others,
yeah,
and then it happened, man.
yeah,
We got lucky.
mm,
And then, we owe a lot to a guy, Ferrand Adria, great chef, and invented molecular cooking.
mhm,
Was the first one that on stage said gin and tonic is a gastronomic act, use the right glass. And he whipped out a bottle of Citadel. It was on TV back then and the
yeah,
team. So that really helped, us, but also the trend, remember the big glass.
mhm, mhm,
And I get worried when I see, for example, gins becoming like artificially colored or artificial flavored.
mhm,
Gin has a lot of freedom,
mhm,
and freedom comes with it's a right,
yeah,
comes with duties.
mhm,
The duty is transparency and integrity. And in that case, I think you know how I am about research,
yeah,
creativity,
mhm,
but it should be only natural products. And
yeah,
that's I made a gin called Rouge,
mhm,
where we say, okay, yes, we can distill red fruit and work with red fruits,
yeah,
but it has to be natural, and then no like shit coloring and stuff.
yeah, yeah,
So with gin, there's a moment. I think it's important
mm,
thing. And rum is incredible.
yeah,
Rum's got all this heritage. There's a huge capital rum, S at the end of rum. And as you know, with Plantaray,
mm,
we're fascinated by that in a very humble way.
mm,
I mean, I grew up in French farmland, and I discovered these deep heritages
mhm,
we call terroir,
mhm,
that from each countries of rum, each islands of rum, that are shaped the culture and the nature's shape to taste profile. And that's something I'm dedicating my life
yeah,
to
mhm,
in a respectful way, as you know, distilling in, Barbados, and with, the team in
mhm,
Jamaica is an incredible team as
yeah,
well. I feel so blessed.
mhm,
My grandfather always said, you don't own a vineyard, you tend a vineyard.
mhm,
You don't own a distillery, you
mhm,
tend a distillery. I mean, if you look at land and men,
mhm,
who wins in the end?
mhm,
Where do
yeah,
we end up?
mhm,
The land owns us, right?
yeah,
So we're very modest about this. And rum, I see that this beauty and these beautiful cultures
yeah,
of rum
mm,
is incredible. And the bartenders were the first one to tap into it. I like to say that we make the instruments, the distillers and the bartenders play the music,
mhm,
and or yourself at home.
yep,
So you'll see more and more of the products we're creating
yeah,
that are very linked to deep heritages. I just want you to know the rums that we love, they have one things in common. At the distillery in Barbados, West Indies Rum Distillery States,
mm,
I feel so honored to be part of the team.
yeah,
Um, and to be the master blender there, it's so humbling,
Yeah.
man. I'm tell you. I mean, I work with, and we say a rum has to rum. Rum is a verb.
Yeah.
You know, rum has to have these beautiful love handles. You know, you need to feel. And when I say it's got a rum,
Mhm.
I'm sure you understand what I'm talking
Mhm.
about, right?
Mhm.
That
I do.
that
Yeah.
aromatics.
Yeah.
It's got a rum.
Yeah.
And so to me, I see these. This is part of my everyday life
Mm.
to just see this incredible, beautiful, rich categories where there are threats, there are opportunities,
Mm.
where they're going, and that's where we are right now.
Yeah. For sure. And what are you seeing? That's good points. I love the production you guys are doing with the rums are my favorite. Like you and I
Me
talked
too,
about it
man.
last time we visited at the on the fire out there looking over the vineyards at night was still a core memory of mine. Love it. Um, but what cocktails are you seeing being made right now?
You know, there's
Yeah.
a lot of creativity out
Mm,
there about cocktails.
mm,
I can tell you, that's where I'm very humble and always kind of remember I made instruments.
mhm,
You guys play the music.
mm,
I can give you a little example.
mm,
One day, Dave Wondrich calls me, and we're always like, I like him to call him my spirit shrink. When I have something to discuss, I call, and then
mhm,
and then he calls me, and I love David. He's what I call an intellectual gourmand. He's an intellectual, a PhD, double PhD, and so on, but he's a gourmand.
okay.
He loves beautiful things to drink,
Mm,
and I like that because sometimes I work with other master blenders or master distillers. We always have a dominant. Is it the brain or the senses?
mm,
It's rare that people can balance the two,
yeah,
and when you are a master blender, it's always important to balance the two to make sure your brain doesn't take over, so everything is an analysis and your senses are not all you got.
yeah,
And so as you grow yourself, I think it's true with the bartender, as you grow yourself, you need to keep that balance
mm,
between your brain and your senses. Willingly or unwillingly, David is a great example of
yeah,
somebody who's done that when you see the Oxford Companion to
mhm,
Spirits, 800 pages, and,
yeah,
and when you share a drink with him. So one day,
mhm,
he calls me and we had just created the curacao,
yeah, mhm,
Ferrand dry
mm,
curacao. Very proud of this product.
mhm,
And he calls me and he says, Alexander, what about pineapple rum? So when he finds something in an old
mm, mm,
recipe, he calls me, you got to make this. I
yes,
mean, I did a reproduction of a little Chinese still from 1940s, and then the not in 1940s, the 1400s,
yeah,
just so he could taste and we could taste what we like. So from drawings that he gave me, we redid that still from,
okay,
it was smaller size from wood and
yeah,
copper. We
mm,
didn't launch a product, but we know more.
mm,
And I thought he was being funny,
mm,
pineapple rum, I was thinking, remember, this,
mm,
and I thought, I tried to be funny back and I said, do we do this right or after the blue
mm,
curacao? And he said, no, no, I'm not kidding. I have this old patent.
mhm,
I'm going to show you. I want to send it to you. And he sent it to me. And, uh, and it was just a few paragraphs in one paragraph. And I
mm,
called back with a fax and said, I only have one part of the recipe. He
mm,
said, that's all I got.
okay,
So we distilled the skin because it says to call the skin of the pineapple. That's the technical aspect. And that
mm,
was not my point. My point is that finally we come up with that product
mm,
distilled in the kitchen of the Chateau de Bonbonnet. I have
yeah,
a little still that I can put on the stove.
yeah,
And then we make a barrel and it's delicious.
mhm,
Took quite a long time. We did a little movie for the guys who want to laugh about it. It's a bit kitsch, but about
okay,
what we did, it's just 2 minutes. David is
okay,
talking into it,
okay,
where we play ourselves. The local TV guy of Cognac is filming us.
okay,
Yeah, you look Stiggins fancy
cool,
online. You'll see it. And at the end,
okay,
David tells you, philosophy behind it.
yeah,
Just 2 minutes on
okay,
YouTube.
yeah,
But where I'm going at is, and when I'm talking about cocktails, I made this product in the 19th century. Pineapple rum was a sipper.
mhm,
And bartenders, the caps,
mhm,
took it and they do it. The bartender's handshake, the
mhm,
shooting it. That's kind of like that sipper is like drinking it straight. And to me, that's what it is. We made a sipping rum, very traditional, when the pineapple is in the background, making the rum delicious, very 19th century style.
yeah,
And I remember going to Jim Meehan one day
yeah,
and said, "Oh, yeah, this is the new product." So I extended, I already have it. I'm like, "Yeah, isn't it a great sipper? We're talking. I'm happy about this." And he's like, "Let me show you one thing."
mm,
And he made a pineapple daiquiri.
mhm,
That was not my idea.
mhm,
That was his idea.
mm,
I made the products. So remember, I built the instruments, and you guys play the music.
Yeah.
So I always get and a pineapple and daiquiri. I felt there was no looking back.
Yeah.
So everybody's coming with different expressions that were not necessarily and technically it's not super intuitive.
Mm.
When you use citrus, usually you don't want too much tannins
Yeah.
because the tannins of the wood can fight it. That's why white rum exists. By the way, they're not aged. I mean, there's other reasons exist also historically, but behind the bar is that option. If you have too much tannins, it's fight.
Yeah.
So since it's aged, it'd be like okay, but the balance with the pineapple,
Mhm.
I didn't think about this. So for me, when I go in the bar, I'm the student,
Mhm.
and I'm learning. So taste the beautiful things. The navy rum. Some people started to show stuff for me with that.
Mm.
So for me, that's a learning school.
Yeah.
And I never imagine a spirit with an application ever.
Mm.
The other way around.
Yeah.
Make something I think it's great, and after we taste it.
Yeah. So you're basically creating I guess, the background of the portrait that we build the
You're
cocktail
right.
on, right?
The
Yeah.
colors,
Yeah, the color, yeah,
and I
we then
make
start
that.
putting the base
Yeah,
colors, and then we go in and
yeah,
refine it.
it's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Like I'm the
Yeah.
farmer in the farms making, growing beautiful plants, beautiful, chickens if you eat chickens, and then there's the chefs, and of course we work with the chefs all the
Yeah.
time. But that's why we love when you come and see us.
Mhm.
You were there, and this. You live with us.
Yes.
You don't visit us. You live with us,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, in the house, this is my furniture. This is, you live with us.
Yeah.
Why? Because that communion is creativity. Think about the artists of the past. They lived together.
Yeah.
I always tell the team, that's why I'm not so much online stuff.
Mhm.
I say, no, we live together. As a team, we do live together.
Yeah.
And when you come, you live with us. That's
Yeah.
how we create.
Yeah, for sure, and if those of you that haven't been, it's a great experience to go out and see Chateau Pomponnet.
Oh, we love
This
to
is
have
great.
people
Yeah, it's great.
over. It's a great, great,
Yeah.
great time.
You and Jacques was your historian's great. I love it.
And your Jacques is
Yeah,
a PhD
yeah,
in history, and
yeah,
then the English literature comes, and he was retired, and he said, I took care of kids and didn't care, and now I found myself.
yeah,
And
yeah,
he never wants to retire because he's there researching, and he does the research when I write books, like the deep dive research about cognac.
yeah, for sure. He's going through, and you guys have the museum now, right? The
Yeah,
museum's officially open at
yeah, yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
Moselle.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's
yeah,
it's kind of a no makeup, history,
yeah,
right in your face,
yeah,
and it's the historical Ferrand house.
yeah,
Now we decided to open as is, really. I mean, I'm
yeah,
sure
yeah,
you
yeah.
agree,
Yeah, as is,
and
yeah,
not like prettied up, but it's just this old, chateau in a vineyard.
yeah,
But we're fixing it a day at a time.
it's awesome. Cool. Well, I know Stiggins. We talked about Stiggins real quick, going back to earlier. I love Stiggins pineapple in a daiquiri.
Well, thank you,
That's
man.
my favorite.
Isn't it?
Yes, it's
Yeah,
so good.
that's
And majority of people would agree. I think in the bartender industry is
such a
it's
classic
great.
now.
Yeah, yeah,
And like I said, that's, we created something that 19th century.
yeah.
You know how they drank it? The Reverend Stiggins, Charles Dickens, used to, used to love, like Hemingway, spirits.
Mm.
Was really, really a gourmand about spirits.
Yeah.
And he created these characters around different spirits.
Mm.
And that's why we call it Stiggins Fancy, because there was a reverend that was created by Charles Dickens who drew his characters.
Okay.
And he always, he was I call it "I shall not drink," but he always had a little flask
Okay.
on his
In his
pocket
pocket. Oh, okay.
with pineapple and take a little shot at it. Hence, the
Yeah.
bartender's hand, he would have
Yeah,
it
yeah.
there, say "I shall not drink," but while having a shot. And he had it body temperature, because when it's very aromatic, the aromatics go like this.
Yeah.
And so it was very 19th century, and then
Yeah.
took a life on its own, and a lot of different things. And we have now the tropical week that we do every year at
Mm.
Maison Ferrand throughout the world,
Yeah.
and all of our friends to just tap into these beautiful flavors.
Yeah. That's great. Cool. Well, now we move on to the next topic. So let's talk a little bit about master blending. So that's something that, especially for these new bartenders, you have a master distiller and you have a master blender. Sometimes they most of the time they work in cohesion. Sometimes it's the same person, and you kind of are more of the blending side, right? You
Yeah,
have
yeah.
a team of distillers that you work with.
Yeah, I'm a master blender,
Mm.
and of course, when you master blender in cognac, you learn to distill.
Mm.
And so I'm a distiller, pot still specialty. More than Colin for me, it's really pot stills my dominant. And it's funny you mentioned that.
Mm.
I'm just gonna conceptualize a little bit.
Yeah.
Each spirit region, think about it,
Mm.
has a dominant character.
Mm.
So, for example, whiskey, they'll tell you about the master distiller,
Yeah.
right? And it's true within rum, by the way. A cognac will talk to you solely about the master blender,
Mhm,
right? Like a perfume maker and and rum, depending on the country, actually.
mhm,
And it's just historical, and the marketing has just took that on, but it was a fact.
mhm,
And really, the there's no one without the other. And Barbados sees it the right way because Barbados, the master blender and the and by the way, what I tell you is so true
mhm.
is that actually, for example, in cognac, the master distiller it works for the master blender.
Okay. Yeah.
Whereas, for a lot of whiskey distillers, it's the other way
It's like
around,
flipped, yeah. I
right?
was gonna say, yeah.
So, but that tells you a lot about the product,
Mhm,
you know? And, if you ask me, in Barbados, what I fell in love with Barbados, the way Barbados rum is been the identity of Barbados rum is a master distiller creating all these incredible colors
mm,
and, uh, and the master blenders just working with it. And they work so closely together. And it's one of the country where they're really you have them on equal footing.
mhm,
Before us, there was a gentleman called Mr. Kinch,
mhm,
and he was a master blender for over 40 years, and my hat down to him.
mhm,
And so the master blender does work. It's and it depends. I think the level of knowledge. For example, in cognac, we don't say aging cognac.
mm,
We say élevage.
okay.
Élevage comes from the root elevate.
Mhm,
Think when you raise your child, think about the word raise.
yeah.
In French, we say élever un enfant,
Mhm,
raise a child. So for us, we don't. So it's a proactive aging.
mhm,
You're going to taste every 3 months that barrel, restave the barrel, change its space, proof down a little because at a different proof, you're going to extract different things from the wood.
yeah.
So the work with the barrels is very, and we have every size of barrel we can use. We can use vats, as you've seen,
Mhm,
and that's why I want to reintroduce chestnut and Malbec because that was
yeah.
part of the arsenal back then.
Mhm,
Remember, 350 coopers in a village of 20,000 people. So that's that knowledge. It takes 20 years to be considered a master blender,
yeah.
So and then the master distiller. So and then in cognac, the stills are just really one type of shape. You can
Mhm,
only change the head, can be oval
mm,
or can be more like more style.
mhm,
And but really that's one type of still.
mhm,
You go to Scotland, yes, you have the Colin, for blended. When you're the pot stills, they're not exactly the same. Of course, they change a little bit in the neck,
yeah.
but really they're pretty the same vein. They're all
Mm,
brothers and or cousins.
yeah.
In Barbados, not at all.
Mm,
Because you're serving the cause and you're there. We have stills. We have a Vulcan, which is a chamber still. I urge everybody who wants to learn about
yeah.
like the different shapes and styles of still to go to Barbados at Stays West Indies Rum.
Yeah.
You'll see a chamber still from America, which is to distilling what jazz is to music, was
Mhm,
invented, as you know, for rye
mhm,
and East Coast.
mhm,
And we have the old Greg that has a double skin in the neck where you can cool down and create a reflux. That's
yeah.
high tech 1850.
Yeah.
We have the Rockley from the 1780s. So just and on and on. 9 type of stills. Why? Because and as many and more recipes of fermentation. So there's 100 combinations or so you create colors.
Yeah.
So the master blender's job in that case is 1 + 1 = 3 or 4 or 5 or 10. The guy who trained me says the in a beautiful blend, the result is better
Mhm,
than any ingredient taking on its own.
yeah.
And it's very intuitive. You think about
Mhm,
it, right? It's like when you cook, either you eat single cask is eating sashimi,
yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with sashimi. It's delicious. We do as a master blender, you can decide on that barrel is incredible on its own,
Yeah.
or you're going to create beautiful dish and so on and so forth. So master blending, I find, is magical that way is we're only discovering the limits. Chemistry doesn't understand all of master blending because your nose and your palate
Mm,
doesn't perceive things differently depending on their concentration
mhm,
and depending on their association.
mhm,
So the creativity and playing with your senses
mm,
is infinite.
mm,
Maybe there's a guy in Italy wants to work with me and with AI to try to penetrate this.
yeah.
Why not? We're going to look into it. But right now, try and error. And that's why 20 years of work.
Yeah.
So, and I find that fascinating.
Mm,
But if you work with a great master distiller, and a master distiller to me is more a yeast fermentation master than distilling. The act of distilling is the more simple of the two.
Yeah.
The magic is fermentation.
Yeah.
Of course, distilling is very important and
Yeah.
it's technical, very technical. But really, the talent, believe me, is the capacity to understand and manage fermentation.
Okay.
That's where flavors
Yeah.
are created.
Mm.
Fermentation, you create flavors with the substract.
Mhm.
Distillation, you select from your creation.
Mhm.
And then by being a master blender, you use these colors to magnify, take it to the next level, elevate,
Mm.
élevage.
Okay.
So that's my job.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. So what specific trainings did you have to go through? You just kind of started tasting with the other former master
Well,
distiller, and
in
then
cognac, there's no school for
there's no, so
master
you just
blending.
kind of
I would love to change this.
Mhm.
So my third book, first one was the History on Champagne. Second one with Matt.
Mhm.
Matt has done incredible research work, incredible, with Navy rum.
Yeah.
So to penetrate that.
Mm.
And the third one is the techniques and the art of the master blender.
Okay.
So I have, for example, a chapter about dynamic aging. Know what happens when the barrel is moving?
Mm.
So I bought an old beaten up barge built in 1948. I got a great deal on it.
Yeah.
It's in Paris. I don't know if you got to
I have
visit it.
not yet.
You
It's
have
on
to
my
go,
list.
you'll
Yes,
see.
yes.
And we got 1,500 barrels that are aging there, and to finance it, we actually have people can buy their own barrel, but I'm researching what happens in dynamic aging, not in 2 months, but in 15 years.
Okay.
So I did that to write one chapter of that book.
Yeah.
But also using different type of woods. There's an incredible master blender, master distiller at Teeling, Alex Shatko,
Mhm.
and the two of us arguably are very advanced in the research of, because I respect, of course, for I'm sure there's others that are great at that, about the different wood types.
Mhm.
Not just oak, but every kind. We call it the wood wonders.
Mhm.
And so I have a chapter about the different woods, whether we're researching, a mango tree, for example, or incienso
Mm.
from Paraguay, which is very, very historical.
Yeah.
And these are all levels of pleasure and ways to access
Yeah.
pleasure.
Yeah. For sure. And you have those barrel, like you make mini barrels, right? I think you have in your R&D lab there that you age everything in.
Yeah, you're
Really?
right. We even
Yeah,
do
yeah.
zebra barrels where
Yeah.
alternate staves, or,
Yeah.
it's very easy.
Yeah.
In the old days, people didn't throw anything away. So they always thought, how do I, go further?
Mm.
So you would recap the barrel. So as a master blender, you learn how to rebuild a barrel and change caps.
Mm.
So let's say you're in Barbados, you have this barrel and you want a little more wood, but not too much.
Mm.
If you lay the cast down horizontally, you have already 20% wood contact. That's enough, so very often. So of course you have the believers of keeping the wood raw. I disagree with that, by the way, but everybody's right.
Yeah.
Or you actually toast the caps, and even if you don't have a coppersmith, a cooper for barrels.
Yeah.
If you have a friend who has a pizzeria,
Mm.
you can toast your caps and rebuild your barrel.
Yeah.
So and you can toast it to perfection. So it's going to be part of making your spirit beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. That's good points too. With coopering, so going into your facility, like, is probably another picture memory is walking into the plantation facility there or a Plantaray facility in Cognac and seeing all the woods that you have aging there and having different ages, statements of just experiments that you're doing just
Yeah.
at least down the road, I think.
Yeah, and all these restaved barrels, and we use
Yeah.
also, I'm going to shock you, but clay pots.
Okay.
Because I believe
Yeah.
I'm going to get killed.
Yeah.
That part of the future is always solutions in the past. As maybe at one point we have to consider how many trees we cut and stuff. I think we are at Maison Ferrand. We work with Organisation Nationale des Forêts,
Okay.
ONF. To make sure forests are being replenished.
Yeah.
It's not being nice. We have to do this. It's not heroic. It's the basic. It's the least we can do.
Yeah.
And so there's techniques how we can adjust to staves, because right now a stave has to be all one piece of wood. So there's a guy, Jean-Charles Vicard, who's patented the system. You can rabouter les douelles without glue.
Okay.
So you save 25% of the tree.
Okay.
And you have 3 barrels per tree. Maybe you can, that way you can make 4.
Yeah.
That's important, right?
Yeah.
But then maybe what is the next step? Are we going back? Remember, aging is the flavoring by the wood,
Mhm.
the additives that the wood provides,
Yeah.
the oxygenation through the wood.
Yeah.
And the clay pot can do this. And why not have that? And, there's a technique called restaving. You restave the barrels.
Okay.
But in the old days, people didn't make so many new barrels. So they did interstaving.
Okay.
So they would actually slide a stave or two inside an older barrel. So you would have the breathing
Okay.
and the flavoring of the wood from the outside. If it's exhausted, you would redo it like this.
Yeah.
In that case, you save a lot of trees.
Mhm.
Now, my grandfather did that, and a lot of the older guys did that because they were, it was very hard to make a barrel.
Yeah.
So, of course, not everybody's willing to hear this, but if we don't research it now for the next generation, or maybe us when we're older, then we're going to be so ready. I've been researching that for
Yeah.
15 years.
Yeah.
I worked with Professor Jong in Korea in clay pot aging. He's a mentor
Yeah.
to me. But why not? It's delicious because you got the oxygenation.
Mhm.
So through the walls of the clay
Yeah.
pot,
Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
and you can actually
Mhm.
choose the granularity. So you can choose. It's very precise
Really? Okay.
techniques. So I have a chapter about that, etc.
Cool.
To your point, to become a master blender, then you need in cognac to find a master that's going to train you.
Yeah.
I have a kid who's 25, Charles. He's a grown-up man.
Yeah.
And I say, if something happens to me, what about the team?
Yeah.
And so everything I've learned, I'm putting into a
Certainly.
book.
Yeah.
And eventually there should be a school for this,
Yeah.
master blending. There are schools about distilling,
Mhm.
throughout the world. Master blending, it's like this very secret
Yeah.
art. It's so secret in cognac that
Yeah.
it's not written. It's oral. It's passed on to generation.
Mhm.
And I do like to open that to the new generations. And I'm using a lot of this. That's my resolution,
Mhm.
to share this with bartenders.
Mhm.
And you'll see. I'm not sure I'm allowed to say this. I'm gonna get killed by Angelique here. Uh, uh, you know, um, when we blend rum, you use this supercharged high esters.
Mhm.
And when you guys come, you've tasted some,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh
right?
yeah.
And in Barbados, when it's higher than 1,600, we
Mhm.
call them the monsters or the hogo monsters. From the term hogo,
Mhm.
ogu. And I'm thinking, why shouldn't you have access to this? So in a drink, you can like have that pinch and make it like rum
Yeah.
even more.
Yeah.
That could be your decision. Now we do it as a master blender. Why can't you do it as a bartender? And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, sharing my know-how, our know-how,
Mhm.
and so why keep it to yourself?
Yeah.
So that's a long answer. I apologize, but I
No. No.
want to explain the work of a master blender in a, in the middle of all these different aspects, and to understand what is the dominant
Yeah. For sure. It's a full
role.
360.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And that's what Barbados magical that way,
Mm.
because that's where you got, and that's not by chance that it is, maybe arguably, I don't know, to my knowledge, the country where you have the most diversity of stills in the world.
Yeah.
So I didn't go through all the stills of China. So but I've seen a lot. I've worked in Sichuan in the old days and stuff. And so, but yeah, I think it's incredible.
Yeah. For sure. So when you're doing the blending, is it so we have the single barrels. When you do a blend, how many barrels do you normally do? Or does it just depend on what profile you're going
Totally
for? It
depends.
is. Yeah. Right.
And there's also blending is progressive in cognac. So, I'm going to be it's a bit colloquial, but sometimes you have a friend and then another friend, and you thought there'd be an incredible match, either for love or for
Mhm.
friendship,
Mhm.
and you organize that dinner. That's what we do with barrels. We
Mhm.
do matchmakings. So, meaning that you taste that barrel and you're like, oh man, that, and you do that automatically. We taste 60 to 80 barrels a day, mostly with the nose, and so you do this, and then that's why you go in cognac. You have vats, and then you're going to take these barrels into a vat, and you're going to be vatting,
Mhm.
and then back to the barrels and
Mhm.
redispatch. Progressive blending.
Mhm.
Then you're going to adjust your proof. Remember, barrels. When people say it's a full fruit proof spirits,
Mhm.
they should say it's a barrel proof spirits. It's very rare that you drink a pot still proof spirit, and because a great master blender,
Mhm.
we slightly tweak is distillate
Yeah.
to put it into the wood, because what you put in the wood, the proof, will define what you extract from the wood.
Mhm.
Why? Because there are some elements of the wood that are more soluble to alcohol and more soluble to water.
Yeah.
I'm going to share a tip for the bartenders
Mhm.
today.
Mhm.
Next time you make your bitters,
Mhm.
if you're using orange skin, for example, try to do it at 40% alcohol, and then at 60% alcohol, and water down and at 20%
Mhm.
alcohol. Use from the same orange, the skin,
Mhm.
and do it in the 3 different spirits.
Okay.
you will have totally different flavors.
Mm.
You will have dissolved elements of the orange differently depending on the proof. Now,
Yeah.
master blenders, we work with that every day,
Mhm.
but that applies to when you make your bitters.
Yeah.
A lot of people think higher proof, more extractions. No, more extractions of certain elements, lower proof, more extractions of other elements
Yeah.
like tannins and so on.
Mm.
So when you do our master blender, that's what you do. You've seen in the aging warehouse the restaved
Mhm.
barrels.
Mhm.
So sometimes you're like, this one would be great with a little more wood, but you don't want to like just a new barrels that's
Yeah.
gonna take over.
Yeah.
So you put it aside into a neutral barrel for like a couple of days, and you change one or two staves, and you'll see they look like Frankenstein. All these new staves,
Yeah.
because there some staves are new and some staves are been there forever, and they're being progressively renewed.
Yeah. For sure. It's really, I'm gonna keep saying this is great points. I love talking to you because we can talk hours and hours about this. Um, but so alcohol is a solvent. So you're saying that alcohol, it does react differently because we're talking about a chemical solution, right? So
Yeah,
based on the exterior factors of what's happening, that's where
yeah,
we're gonna
it will
extract it, right?
solve like if you do your
Yeah.
bitters,
Yeah.
but water is a solvent too.
Yeah. That's
You right?
true. Yes.
And
So
and and some
yeah.
elements are more
Okay.
solvable by water,
Mhm.
and some by I'm talking it's like cocaine. It's like behind the bar.
Mhm.
You know that,
Mhm.
and that's really really important to keep in mind. When you do your bitters.
Yeah.
But that's knowledge from master blenders, and it's just why not share it?
Yeah.
You know.
For sure. And I know when I came to France, you talked briefly about barrel shock or blending shock. Can you talk a little bit about yeah,
Blending shock is and also
is
proofing down shocks.
proofing shock? Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, proofing shocks.
Mm.
So barrel shocks, if the barrel is very very new, you
Mhm.
got to be very careful what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because you're going to bring in so much tannins at once
Mm.
and so on. So, in cognac, as a master blender, you learn usually 2 3 months in the new barrel, then old barrels and so on. So
Yeah.
this rolling élevage,
Yeah.
you never put it. And I respect people who do in a new barrel all the way, but that's totally foreign. For
Yeah.
example, in my culture,
Mm.
and so and my learnings, and so because you can create a barrel shot. Also, there's a barrel shot when you do double aging.
Okay.
And for example, I created the Renegade number 3
Mm.
Ferrand,
Mm.
which we did something that used to be possible until 1980s. Remember, definition of tradition.
Yeah.
And I wanted the Renegade barrel is to tap into these old techniques that made beautiful spirits.
Yeah.
And I feel it's so beautiful. We do an edition.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to give up the AOC, the appellation contrôlée, because these techniques are not considered, nowadays regulation. But again, in full transparency, we explain and we respect the law as it is. And so when I did this, there's this old man, still alive, Jacques Neveu, and he's sick now.
Mm.
My respect to Jacques.
Mm.
And Jacques Neveu was telling me when I was much younger than his grandfather himself would go in Bordeaux and buy rum barrels for the cognacs. At the time, you could do this. And so a little light bulb, I was young, I was like, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And years forward, we had this delicious, Barbados, you know, uh, Jamaican barrels. And I'm like, I'm going to try this.
Mhm.
And the first time I tried it, you put it into a rum barrels, and the first months, it's like a little monster. It's like, I don't know if you have kids, but it's like a teenager.
Mm.
It's like, talks back to you and
Yeah. Mm.
and it's got zits and all of that. So
Yeah.
that was that teenager in that barrel, man.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
and we know that.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, just wait a little.
Yeah.
Wait a little.
Mm.
And then it starts to just being better and better and balanced and so on. You're like, wow.
Yeah.
So, you have that barrel shock. And then proofing shock. And, when you proof down the cognac, it's very, 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 very progressive. Same in Barbados. You just don't go like one pour of water.
Yeah.
If you do it, you're going to release a lot of the aromatics right there. So as a bartender, you can. But us as a blender, we can't.
Okay.
So, and the water has to be very, very distilled, very, very, very soft water. So that would be, not to shock it at all.
Mm.
The guy who trained me actually taught me to age water in recycled barrels
Okay.
to soften it up.
Mm.
It's called la méthode des petites eaux. It's extremely time and space consuming. We do it for the higher
Mm.
ranges because it's a technique that's like making jewelry,
Mhm.
but that's to have a full integration.
Yeah. That's cool. So moving on now to a little bit more about Maison Ferrand. So now talking more brand points. So you have Citadel, you have Plantaret, and then you have Ferrand. You said you're seeing more cognac movement on the market right now. How is Citadel and
It's
Plantaret
with
doing?
gin.
Yeah.
There's been so many gins
Yeah.
and things, and as you know, we you saw the distillery,
Mhm.
Citadel, which is more like an experimental distillery based on hundreds of years experience. Some of these stills are 150 years, and
Yeah.
one is a vacuum still that's like 5 years.
Yeah.
And then we have what is called a Stoffler system, with a special reflux system. So it's very experimental. I can, for people like music and they know the Moog synthesizers,
Mhm.
I can plug every stills with everyone.
Mhm.
And and so in that sense, that feeling about where gin is going is I think gin is such a vector of
Mhm.
flavors that I think it's eternal.
Mhm.
I like spirits that have a lot of flavors. And remember, every spirit has water, alcohol, and the flavor elements.
Yeah.
We call some people call congeners, we
Mhm.
call volatile substances. And and gin is there, fully flavored. So gin has an incredible space.
Mhm.
And in terms of taste profile, there's nothing that's like it.
Mhm.
So it's got an incredible space. I think gin is forever.
Yeah.
Now it's just got to be a lot of expressions, and I always encourage people to really go visit the distilleries because the regulation of cognac is 23-page long. The
Yes.
one for the EU regulation for gin is a paragraph, and for the better and for the worst.
Mhm.
I do like freedom. I think it's important, but freedom comes with transparency.
Yeah.
And I do like structuring rules, meaning that gin should be, only juniper berries as the juniper berry element, not flavors of juniper
Yeah.
berry, like should be
Yeah.
things like this. And once you have that, the structuring element, then of course that freedom is very important, but
Yeah.
the theme should be defined. For example, people don't realize, but there's a CARICOM rule of rum, Caribbean Community Rule of Rum.
Yeah.
It's very old. It's over 50 years old.
Mhm.
And rum is made from cane. That's part of the rule. And it should be, and if the, things from cane,
Yeah.
anything added to
Yeah.
it should be cane based.
Mhm.
And the age on label is a true age, and the minimum age. That's also very important.
Yeah.
These rules that are about integrity are very important. And after that, you know where I stand,
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
you know.
So, so when I was there, it's 2019 now, right before the pandemic. You guys just planted the juniper berry trees. How are those doing?
We are
Yeah.
they're growing a lot,
Yeah.
and we are soon to be 20 acres,
Mhm.
and we have a space for 50 acres.
Okay.
So, we never have cash. We reinvest everything all the
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
So they are, and they're growing.
Mm.
They're growing well. We're still not autonomous. I think we should be autonomous within the next 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
Seems like a long time. In the history of distilling is not long.
Mhm.
We are mowing the land all the time because we don't want the grass to compete too much with the juniper berries.
Yeah.
So we are going to probably buy a whole bunch of pigs
Okay.
to do that because we have a guy, who's always
Understood.
doing
Back
this.
and forth.
And then, we need an animal that doesn't eat juniper berry trees. So
Mhm.
goat wouldn't work, for example.
Yeah.
So that's the next step we're going to be looking at. I grew up on a farm. It's not always easy with animals; they get sick and things. So
Yeah.
we are going to, and we're not. My wife will not allow that we eat the pigs.
Okay.
We're going to keep the pigs
Yeah.
going,
Yeah.
and so that's what we're going to experience with that. And and they're kicking in. They're growing.
That's good.
And they're juniper communis, the historical, and we had also little juniper other kind.
Okay.
The rule of gin, it should be juniper communis, which is the gin structuring element,
Yeah.
but you can use as a botanical another breed of juniper berries,
Okay.
which is a great level also for flavors.
Yeah, for sure.
And that allows us to
Mm.
distill fresh juniper berries.
Okay.
So, which adds for certain expressions a beautiful, beautiful element,
Yeah.
because you don't have to dry them so they keep.
Mhm.
We can have them fresh right in the stills.
Yeah.
You have to cross the road,
Oh, yeah, you just cross the road and pick them in
and
in
it's
the
not a
store.
big highway as you've seen.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And the distillery's done now, right? You
Yeah.
guys just
Oh,
rebuilt it.
yeah, yeah.
It was a building when it was
Man, you
last
got to
year.
come back.
Yeah.
You're gonna seeing, yeah, it's there.
Awesome. How many stills in that?
So now it's 9 stills, 10 now.
Okay.
Actually, I would just add another one.
Mhm.
And we excavated this 18th century building, all the underneath. We were nervous it was going to fall on our head
Yeah.
while we're doing this.
Yeah.
It didn't. And so because all the pipes are underneath, and I can always, if I change my mind, repipe
Just
or
okay.
recabled. No, you need to come back, man.
Yeah,
You're
I
gonna
need to check
see
it out. It's
it's there, and
yeah,
a lot of research that we're doing with it as well.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I know the gin lab where you had all the different botanicals was also really cool on the second floor. Like when we had the experimentation room and on the second floor was when we had the gin.
Yeah, you're right.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
do the old tom where we use different, in that case, we can use different type of woods.
Yeah.
I don't know if we had the ovum as well, the the huge egg
Mhm.
vat,
Yes, the egg, I was gonna ask you
when
about the egg.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
the egg is doing great. Egg is
Yeah.
called conversion. So, you have the perfect seamless blend.
Mm,
So, because remember, when a blend is fully achieved, you
mm,
says it has fondu, the
mm.
integration. Sometimes there's a blend and it's fighting like cat and dog in your
Yeah,
mouth, or and the blend is very wholesome, so
yeah.
it's very, very beautiful. And that's called fondu, which
Mm,
is really integration.
yeah.
And the egg is to create the fondu
Okay,
for the old time.
okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
And then you also have cognac. How's the cognac harvest looking this year? Have you had any kind
Wow.
of variation? And
Man,
of
this has
course,
been
isn't
crazy. But farmers, we always complain,
yeah.
so don't be deterred.
Mm,
But yes, it's that's why I love now
yeah,
cultivating coconuts.
mm,
With right now we're friends
yeah,
at Dacres taking care of it, and
yeah,
also Mr. Nichols and Junior in Barbados. And thanks to them, by the way, so we can have the cut and dry.
yeah.
But when you plant a coconut, bare, short of a hurricane, by the way,
Mhm.
but it just grows and it's beautiful and it's nice. Now grapes. Man, that's another one. And grapes this year, we had too much rain
Okay,
and too much. It was too cold.
okay.
Europe hasn't been as cold as it's been for as a spring.
Yeah,
So we were to the point of really, really having a damaged harvest.
okay.
And by magic,
Mm,
boom! At the last week, last hour,
mm,
it's starting being hot. I speak with the team every day when I'm traveling.
yeah,
I'm at the distillery,
yeah,
and so we're. I think we're going to be okay.
okay,
The grapes are there. Then it's rotted down. The sun now is drying them. We have a nice breeze. You need a breeze so the disease don't go between the fruits. So the
yeah,
breeze is like having a little cold air blower, on it, so
yeah,
they stay very healthy.
yeah,
And we have all of this right now. So knock on wood. Now, what could happen?
mm,
If we go back to rain, that would be really bad now.
yeah,
On a more ripe fruit, you can create a lot of rot. So we don't want this right now. We would love to have sun, 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 and a little breeze and no hailstorm,
yeah,
because when it's get very hot, then you have a hailstorm. Hail is like knives,
yeah.
putting
Just
it down on the
stops the
floor.
harvest.
So the team of the vineyards, Corentin and the team, I think, we speak all the time.
Yeah,
But I think it's going to be a beautiful harvest if we get sun. If we go back to rain, it's going to be a disaster.
okay, that's good. Hopefully it doesn't rain and we have a good harvest this
Oh
year.
man, hope so.
Yeah, sure. And then for cognac, they harvest in October, right?
I don't, it all
It
depends.
still depends on
Yes,
when you.
you're absolutely right
Mm,
historically,
yeah,
but with global warming,
yeah,
we've been distilling actually earlier and earlier.
yeah,
Yeah, one year even harvesting. We harvested
yeah,
at the end of August, beginning of September.
yeah,
I've never seen that in my life.
yeah.
Now this year, I think 25th of September,
Okay,
but
that's gonna depend on
nature
that.
is going to decide, not me,
Yeah.
right? And so that's what I think it's going to be.
Okay.
But you're right. Traditionally, it's October,
Mhm,
and because remember, we don't need a lot of acidity.
mhm,
The wine has to be super, super like sharp and defined,
yeah,
and we need something that is not too dense because we create concentration with distillation.
yeah. That's it. That's yeah. I love going into cognac, but that would have to be another episode for us to sit down here.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
so the other products, Plantaray. So you guys have two new products that well, one that's been around a little bit, kind of under the radar, is the cut and dry that you guys have been working on, and then Doctor Foggy or
Yeah, Mr. Fog,
Mister
you're right.
Fog.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. So cut and dry is just coming into the U.S.
But to the US,
Is
a coconut at a time,
coconut.
because we researched cut and dry many, many years,
Yeah,
and because we need super ripe coconuts, it took me 4 years to figure that out.
yeah,
So I'm not too smart, I guess.
yeah, yeah,
And then to make it, and then we have to use a coconut. So we use the coconuts, there in Barbados, and um, and we didn't want to dry out the coconut water business, which is made with green coconuts. So we worked actually. Was not my idea. The United Nations contacted us and
mm,
says, that could regenerate some of the farming. So it's like, that's cool, man. We can commit.
yeah,
And at first, because we didn't have enough coconuts, we only sold it in Barbados. So
mhm,
when people get to Barbados, the shop, the duty shops,
mm,
loved it because people bought the bottles. And
yeah,
and as we have more coconuts now, because remember, it's been around now in Barbados for a while,
yeah,
and it's one of the darling, I'm proud to say, product in
mm,
Barbados. Um, People now we are able to launch it in America and in Europe. Few bottles, it's here and there.
yeah,
And the goal is to continue cultivation,
yeah,
with our partners, farmer partners, and also ourselves. With
Yeah.
this year, we're going to plant about 30 acres of coconuts, about 100 tree
Okay.
per acre,
Okay.
and you plant a nut in the ground and there it goes,
Yeah.
and then 3 years later, start producing
Okay.
coconuts. At first, 100 coconuts per year.
Okay.
And then when it's full maturity, 5 years, about 200 coconuts per year. We wait until they're so dry, they fall off the tree
Okay.
and then cut, dried, and then infuse and a whole recipe. But that's the cut and dry
Okay.
being launched in the US right now.
Yeah.
And I apologize to anybody if it's not as much,
Mm.
because I don't want anybody to hate us. We want to
Yeah.
do it stage by stage. Remember when with Stiggins, we did step by step as we
Yeah.
found
Yeah.
more
Just kind of spread.
pineapples.
Yeah. We'll spread
Yeah.
after that. Yeah.
And so we will. We are committed. I mean,
Yeah.
committed to the point we're planting ourselves.
Yeah. That's great. And I was going to ask you about the coconuts, but you answered that perfectly for me because I was wondering how quickly the trees will regenerate and
Yeah,
produce
yeah,
soon.
yeah, yeah.
Perfect. And then the new one that you tasted today, when is that? When is that coming out to the market?
Alors the
Hmm.
Mr. Fogg is one batch.
Okay.
It's this when we did the research, Matt went to the archives, met a lot of people. He did 6 months of deep research, just doing this and traveling and reading all contracts from the Navy and so on. So, and after that, we reviewed all these documents. He wrote his part about the very descriptive about all the findings.
Yeah.
Some elements nobody really knew, like open vat, aging, and all of that.
Yeah.
And so that was the deep research. And then after, what do we do with this?
Mm.
And I was thinking, are they elements like pillars?
Mm.
I call them, that are defining what we know as Navy rum. Are there any?
Yeah.
Like common denominators, if you will. And of course, it's not since day one. We think, Matt and I, because at first, it's just what it is. People bought rum in one island, went to the other island, topped off that barrel and topped off that barrel
Yeah.
because they didn't drink beer. The beer was gone, way, couldn't stand long trips.
Mm.
And the same with wine. Remember, there was no sulfites in wine back then,
Yeah.
didn't last. So, spirits was the only solution.
Yeah.
And so at first was born out of necessity. And remember, because of that old tradition,
Mm.
the DNA of rum is not only what we talked about in the first part about this deep sense of terroir origin that
Yeah.
was established by hundreds of years. It's also the blending of these,
Mm.
which is very unique.
Mm.
And it belongs to rum, that culture. I know other spirits do it, like, but different origins, but like rum does it in the wide open, telling you we blend this and this and that to
Yeah.
do that. Well, that tradition is the ships,
Yeah.
and that became an incredible tool
Mm.
for the master blender. Think what I created with my team and I, we created 3 stars
Mm.
to make a white rum it's got a lot of intricacies and complexities. That is not a rum agricole that's got the beautiful grassiness and so on. I mean, rum is beautiful in all its expression.
Mm.
That's not a neutral rum because remember, we love rums to rum.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what about and then
Mm.
you can blend different origins and you can have a beautiful base from Barbados that's balanced, elegance, nice. You can have a little rum funk from Jamaica, just a little bit, just to give it a kick. And then some Trinidad that's aged a few months to add a little sweetness, to it. It felt like a magical thing to do, and that's the DNA of rum. So now back to Navy rum.
Mm.
What is Navy rum? I went to a lot of master classes trying to learn. I went to speak to different master blenders and say, and most of the answer I got was, yeah, it's the strong stuff, and it's a blend of different origins. And some people, of course, large educated people, but really the full picture. So when Matt, told me he was retiring from IT 5-6 years ago, I said, what about researching this with a revenge? I don't have time, materialistic time,
Yeah.
because I distill, I blend, and can you do this? Like Jacques
Yeah.
is doing
Mm.
in Cognac.
Mm.
And Matt is incredible. And he went and Matt and Carrie, his wife, and
Yeah.
she's important,
Yeah.
very important.
Mm.
And so he went back and brought back all these things. And one day he calls me and says, I met this gentleman called Mr. Fogg. He used to be in the Navy, then worked for EDF Man, that was a broker for rum for the British Crown
Mm.
until 1970, the Black Dot
Yeah.
Day.
Yeah.
And then he was hired for whiskey, but then he got to keep some of the documents and developed a passion for gone spirit.
Yeah.
And this man has spent his life collecting this and working on this. And he had that collection. And he was much, much older when Matt met him.
Mm.
And they clicked. And then one day Matt says, I got all these documents I'm scanning through, but he's talking with his wife about sheltering these documents so we can study them more.
Yeah.
We have a foundation. So the foundation belongs to everybody. And so, we promised it's going to be there. We purchased it for his family. And then, and Mr. Fogg is this gentleman that allowed us to have documents that would have been thrown away and gone.
Yeah.
We have even the artifacts, how it's poured. I mean, incredible stuff. And so, we wanted to, with of course the authorization from his family, his wife, and Jane Fogg, who's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I almost called it Mrs. Fogg, by the way.
Yeah. Okay.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
And she's, to call it Mr. Fogg in his honor.
Mm.
And in a room, now I'm putting together a room with all the archives ever, all the distills I ever made, and all the bottles,
Yeah.
but also all the documents. And there's gonna be a full space for Mr. Fogg's and all of that with the old drawings of stills and
Yeah.
everything I have. And so that's how it came to life. So think about it: 4 years of work,
Mm.
almost 5 years, open vat,
Yeah.
aging,
Yeah.
12% angel share, trying to convince French customs that yes, you can do more than 6% and not tax me. Is that possible? And they really worked with us.
Okay.
But on this, because it was really interesting research.
Yeah.
And you got to try it.
I have not tried it yet.
Oh
I
man,
wanna
you
try
got
it
to
soon.
try
Yeah,
it.
I
You
need to try
see,
it.
yeah. It's we're very proud,
Yeah.
and it's like making a bechamel on the back burner.
Yeah.
So you got that beautiful layering concentration. We use 4 origins, and you'll see in the book.
Mhm.
The first part is all this description about history. The second part, first part is written by Matt. Second part I wrote,
Yeah.
and in the and man, I suck at writing. It was difficult for me,
Okay.
and I'd rather make spirits. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yet
Yeah.
I want you to make sense of it and saying what are the pillars, description, analysis, and what we did with it in making the rum. And hopefully, and I share some master blending experience, the perception of molecules and so on. So I think somebody who wants to dig
Dig
deep
deeper into
dive,
it.
into it. I think that's why we did the book.
Yeah.
Most and foremost to learn for ourselves.
Yeah.
So it took 4 or 5 years and a full 300 pages book to make this rum.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm excited to try it for sure when I can get some. So the last product, real quick, I know we're kind of over a little over on time, is the carousel.
Yeah.
So the carousel. So tell us a little bit about that because I've seen it. I've seen the vats and stuff. You got aging.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
yuzu is delicious that you
Oh,
came
thank
out
you,
with
man.
too. So,
Curacao in the old days was the magic of all things,
mm,
both for cooking and for making. And when I worked on the 1840, that was a tribute to my grandmother, and always this cognac that has a lot of volatile substances, taste element. Remember they're measured in grams per hectoliter.
mhm.
Law in cognac is a minimum of 200 grams. You wait, 1840, you're clocking at 550, 600.
Yeah.
So it's this very structured. That's why you can use it in a cocktail, in very classic cocktails. The 1840 has that, and I made that in her honor. And so I called it 1840 because I have actually, I collect cognacs that are like VSOP grades, but
Yeah.
made 150 years ago.
Mm.
And I wanted to finalize this with Dave to think what he thought, because he's somebody and he was excited because I'm going to taste the original mint julep.
Mhm.
We did it with the 1840 bottle, by the way.
Okay.
And then of course the 1840, what we call original formula. And I was showing him also some of the citrus distillates that I do. I found citrus magicals. I think if you ask me, Adam and Eve, was it an apple? I think was an orange or
There's an
some
orange.
kind
Oh,
of
yeah, yeah,
citrus
yeah.
because it's such a vector of flavors. And I showed that to him, and he's like, Alexander, we need a true curacao, not the blue stuff, not over sweet stuff. We need like a curacao that's got like incredible depth, complexity. And Dave explained to me how it was used, and luckily liqueurs are documented in writing as opposed to cognacs.
Mhm.
So of course I received a shower of, and I have some also old documents
Okay.
from David, and I have also some of these books and recipes, 57 recipes.
Okay.
And we did that, understanding what means triple sec and so on. So we understood, a lot of that then. And remember, curacao, if you look in the old days, it was in everybody's cupboard. Everybody.
Mm.
You make a duck à l'orange, canard à l'orange, use curacao in it. Your friends will love it.
Mm.
Next time you eat strawberries, few soup spoons on your strawberries.
Strawberry the same.
Yo, ice cream. Tea. The guys who go hunting in the countryside, where I live, they put a few soup spoon, in a big coffee cup, and you go hunting. Not too much,
Yeah.
but just a little bit because it's so flavorful.
Yeah.
Now it's very true behind the bar.
Yeah.
I was taught by Eric Loring, for example, that in all the recipes that he studied, that one cocktail out of three called for a classic curacao. So, and we had to fetch the Laha orange, which is the bitter orange, to be able to reproduce this, cognac, brandies,
Yeah.
and we created the original curacao. And that little bottle, by the way, I have a little story.
Mm.
When we were finished, David says, yeah, it has to reach that price because, bartenders, they want a beautiful product, but the cost has to be, and I don't know if you see, we always try to contain our cost.
Mhm.
That's very important to us. And some guys, marketers or financiers, this, why don't you sell it twice as much? And I'm like, yeah, but I want everybody to be able to have access and use it. So we have so little budgets for bottle. We looked for the cheapest bottle on the market,
Yeah.
and we put the label on the side,
Yeah, I was gonna
to
say the square
fancy it
label.
up. But
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's fully recycled glass, very, very light, so very little energy
Yeah.
to produce it. But was born out of necessity, because that's all we were left. And I'm so proud to see, and I want to thank all the bartenders using it,
Yeah.
that curacao took a life of its own.
Yes.
And then COVID hits. My wife, we all become crazy. I built a distillery, because I say maybe we're all dead in 5 years. So all
Yeah.
these remaining dreams, we have to do a checklist
Yeah.
and start with a bigger one.
Mm.
That was the distillery in Bonbonnet.
Okay.
And my wife she went on like a crazy woman in gardening.
Okay.
And, cantaloupe, very local. And then figs and harvesting them, doing them so way. Tomatoes, we ate delicious tomatoes.
Yeah.
And that inspired me, Jardin d'été, Citadelle Jardin d'été.
Yeah.
And Jardin d'été was, to me, it's like drinking gin by the pool, or lemonade by the pool kind of thing. That's what I want to trigger in you. And we use yuzu.
Yep.
And I've learned about late harvest yuzu. And as I was making the gin, when you distill yuzu, the whole distillery smells like yuzu cello.
It's like,
It's like this is so delicious.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I wonder what if we substituted the Laha Classic Curacao Orange for the yuzu.
Yeah.
And make that, because remember, we use the yuzu not when it's juice worthy.
Yeah. It's when it's
Our discovering was to let it sit on the tree so it gets a little tangerine notes, much more depth and flavors. So they're no good to juice anymore. So that's why I have to contractualize. They're grown in Morocco by La Grumiste,
Okay.
a guy that specializes very, very high in citrus. And that's what we distilled for Jardin d'été. And then I made the curacao with yuzu. And when we taste it, it's like, this is delicious.
Yeah.
It's like the brother or the sister.
Yeah.
Because they serve two purpose.
Mm.
And people say, how do you use it? I said, I don't know. I made the product. I love to sip it.
Yeah.
And some people do yuzu margaritas or sidecars with the yuzu just to substitute and create beautiful formulations and cocktails with it. And at first it was only seasonal because we have to harvest the yuzus in January, beginning of February, and when they're fully overripe, what we call late harvest, instead of November or December.
Yeah.
And so that means we can only distill it once a year. We don't want to freeze them. We
Yeah.
don't very naturally. So we decided we're going to make one run and stop.
Okay.
And then everybody's like, no. Guillaume, all the team in the US, we want more of that yuzu. So we did another batch. And so now we're distilling enough so we have it throughout the year.
Yeah.
And you guys tell me, the listeners, you tell me, should we make more? Should we stop? I don't know. I don't want, if you like it, we'll make some more because we love to drink it. We'll always make some for ourselves.
It's really good in lychee martinis.
Oh,
It's really good.
Oh, really?
Two flavors.
it's a great idea.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Wow.
Yeah, I think you should keep making it. I love using it.
So you think we should?
Yeah.
All right.
My vote is for continue doing it.
Okay. Well, that's, we'll do a vote, but if
Yeah.
I know the team in the US wants me to do, and Europe as well. So we make a batch every year.
Yeah. It's awesome. Cool. Well, thank you for coming out.
Thank you so much, man.
For sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a great pleasure.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you
Well,
so much.
so
Thank
having
you.
you.
That's a great
Where
pleasure.
can people follow you if they have any questions, or where
Well,
how
I'm on
do they
Instagram,
okay,
Alexandre Gabriel 1966,
okay,
and for the
yeah,
they laugh at me because I just got on it, and that's
yeah,
my name on it, and and also on Facebook,
yeah, Facebook,
that's they can follow me,
yeah,
and I'm getting more into it. It's sometimes it's hard for me to do messaging on it because I distill and make rum. You see this morning on the
yeah,
line,
yeah,
and so and so respectfully, sometimes it's better to do with WhatsApp to talk to me.
sure,
I love to help. I saw distillers from Australia and all of that to
yeah,
share dreams. Reminds me so much things. So and thanks again to all
yeah,
using our products. I call the products my babies.
yeah,
So if you're using Citadel, if you're using Plantaray, if you're using Ferron, thank you because without you, I would be a barback and not a good one.
yeah, for sure.
That's all I know to do.
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Well, thank you all for watching us. Again, we'll be back for the next episode, and give us a follow.
Thank you.